Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for tuning into this Fuse Hub webinar. Today's webinar, an inside look at the New York State Centers for Advanced Technology, is brought to you by Fuse Hub in partnership with NYSTAR, the New York State Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and 4 of NYSTAR's Centers for Advanced Technology. My name is Julianne Clothier, and I am the Manager of Industry Engagement here at Fuse Hub, and I will be moderating the webinar today. We have a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website for download within the next couple of days, and all participants are on listen-only mode. The bulk of the webinar will be presented by several of the Centers for Advanced Technology that span across New York State. Today we will hear from Kim Grant, Dennis Cormier, Dan Walsick, and Lawrence Weber. Today's agenda includes a brief intro of Fuse Hub, and as I mentioned, you will hear from 4 CAT centers, and each CAT center will provide a brief overview of their facilities, key partners, recent activities, as well as highlights about a company success story. At the end of the webinar, we have saved time for questions, so feel free to submit a question at any point in time during the webinar. If possible, if you can type them into the section on your screen, we will address them during the Q&A portion. And if you want to make a note of which center you are asking the question about, that will be very helpful. We will also share some of our upcoming fall programs. Okay, so let's get started. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar on behalf of Fuse Hub. We are the designated statewide manufacturing extension partner for New York. As the statewide MEP, Fuse Hub works to better connect New York's small and mid-sized manufacturing companies to the resources, programs, and expertise they need for technology commercialization, innovative solutions, and business growth. The New York State MEP program is administered by Empire State Development's Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation. We have 10 regional MEP centers and 1 statewide center, Fuse Hub. NYSTAR also funds 15 centers for advanced technology to encourage greater collaboration between private industry and universities in the development and application of new technologies. Today we will focus on 4: the University of Buffalo CAT in Big Data and Health Sciences, previously known as the UB-CAT for Biomedical and Bioengineering Technology, Imprint Center at the University of Rochester, the Center for Automation Technologies and Systems at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and the Sensor-CAT, Center for Advanced Technology in Diagnostic Tools and Sensor Systems at Stony Brook University. We have a great deal of information for you today, so let's get started. First on the agenda, we have Kim Grant, Business Development Executive for UB-CAT. For the last 4 years, Kim Grant has been the Business Development Executive for the UB Center of Excellence for Bioinformatics and Life Sciences in the UB-CAT, and works closely with other biotech centers of excellence and other CATs at Stony Brook and Cornell on programs like I-Core, eLabs, and the Life Sciences Summit. Take it away, Kim.
Thank you so much, Julianne. So a little bit of history. The UB-CAT just went through our redesignation, and in the process of doing that, we've been changed from the UB-CAT for Biomedical and Bioengineering Technology to the CAT for Big Data and Health Sciences. So our focus was originally on pharmaceutical development, med devices, and healthcare IT, and now we're really delving into an emphasis of data and the way that plays in the development of pharmaceuticals, med devices, diagnostics tools, and healthcare IT. So it's a progression. We're seeing that in the evolution of medicine, and so that allows us to work with the companies that are really embarking on this new trend in what they're doing. So we're very excited about it. There's a lot of expertise here in the Western New York area and upstate, and I have companies that I'm working with in Albany and in Brooklyn and Syracuse and Ithaca and Rochester. So it's not just companies in our own backyard. This is really meant to help all of the companies in the life sciences ecosystem across the state. And what you'll hear in the next couple of slides is it's a layering effect. there is not a silver bullet to help all companies achieve their goals, their growth goals, their hiring goals, their investment raise goals. However, we are trying to de-risk things with all the multitude of programs that we have, turning that quarter into a dollar. So we have multiple programs that are helping these companies get to those next milestones to make them more investable along the way. Next slide. So specific to the University of Buffalo, we have bioscience incubators with wet labs and office space. And I'm always specific in saying, if you were to go to a Boston or a San Francisco, wet lab space can run anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 for a half a bench. And in Buffalo, it runs about $800. So if you're investing in a biotech company, your money is going to go farther in Western New York for those critical services, and yet you're not going to compromise the quality of the faculty expertise or the students or the workforce that's going to be working on your initiatives through the UB-CAT. So faculty expertise, workforce, we have extraordinary funding opportunities. So we have a Clinical Translational Science Award that we're working with. We have SWIFT, which is UB's version of business-friendly terms, working with businesses. So IP was always a big hurdle when companies would engage with the university, and SWIFT has addressed that by making it really easy for you to negotiate with the university. If you're bringing in intellectual property, you're working on something and verifying and validating it, you're coming in and you're going out, and we're just verifying and validating. There's no development going on. So what you bring in is what you take out, and we take no claim to that. However, if you come in and there's some development that happens in that project, there's going to be a discussion about the IP and who owns what. And we're not going to try and get blood from a stone. We're going to wait until the work is done and something new has been created before we take claim on sharing that new IP created. If nothing's created, then there's no harm done, and you know, the company walks out with the intellectual property they walked in with. So it's a negotiation, and it's not a stumbling point like it has been in the past. The Buffalo Innovation Fund is a new fund that's being cultivated, working in collaboration with UB faculty to try and get over that valley of death. So again, it's not just UB-CAT, but we're trying to pull all of the funding mechanisms across the university and in the region to be able to help these companies, help your companies achieve your milestone and innovation growth goals. Along the way, we have programming from the I-Core program, which is really getting that voice of customer engagement, Critical Path, which is our Life Sciences Accelerated, which is surrounding you with mentors and market validation and regulatory people, supply chain experts, and making you ready to pitch ready for venture discussions. We have our Bright Buffalo Entrepreneur Forum, which is not restricted just to life sciences, but UB-CAT supports that program, and very often we get a large chunk of those companies that have some biotech tie-in, which is why we support it. And then we also have our BioNetwork Advisory. So there are people that left the Buffalo ecosystem, but who have strong ties to the region and are committed to seeing life sciences grow in New York State. And so we have this biotech network, which is led by Terry McGuire from Polaris Ventures. And he works in conjunction with me and my Center of Excellence teammates, and we put companies in front of him that are pitch ready to get to that next point. And we've had some successes with For Robin and Tactiva and Abcombi, and very often the folks on the advisory committee you know, end up being advisories people on the board of the company. So that's been a win-win all the way around, and they get to stay plugged into what we're doing. In terms of things that we offer, we have some key capabilities in our Center of Excellence, which works in conjunction with CAT, from our Center for Computational Research, which has, it's like 8,000 computers working on one problem per second. We have 100 teraflops and 8,000 cores and 600 terabytes of high performance storage. And they are doing projects with companies all the time. And really, the benefit to the company is not to have to invest in your own servers. And we've got redundancy that companies are relying on when they use the CCR. We have a 1,500 square foot clean room here, and we also have a clean room on the North Campus. If you're in that manufacturing realm and you have requirements for that, you know, those are expensive facilities to set up, and so we avail that to the companies that we work with so they don't have to make investment. Our genomics and bioinformatics core, which includes mass spectrometers and PCR machines, centrifuges, rotors. We have an Illumina HiSeq 2500. And then we have a world-renowned proteomics and bioanalysis core run by Dr. Jun Chu, and he is world-renowned for what he's doing. And we're doing projects with Thermo Fisher and several other large companies, and the reason they're here is because of Dr. Chu. So again, we're focused on pharmaceutical, med device, bioinformatics, and healthcare IT, but I encourage any company that is looking to grow or innovate to raise their hand and ask for assistance. We're here to help. Next slide, please. So the goal of the CAT, as in with all of the NYSTAR programs, is converting research into jobs and economic prosperity. And let me just highlight a couple of the companies. Athenex, formerly known as Kinex, was developed by a UB researcher, Dr. David Hangauer. He developed a cancer therapeutic, and in June of this year, they went through an IPO and raised millions of dollars, and they're building a 500-person manufacturing facility in Dunkirk, just an hour south of Buffalo. And so they are a huge success story for our region. Rheonics is out of Ithaca, and they are also growing. They have a card system for measuring PSA levels. And the CAT has been instrumental in de-risking their money and raising investment. ONI works on neonatal therapies with surfactant, which helps preemies' lungs grow. And Abcombi Biosciences is working on a pneumococcal vaccine that costs less to produce. Harker Bio spun out of UB's structural biology department, and they're going gangbusters. I can't say enough about what's happening here in Buffalo and the companies we've had an opportunity to work with, and the jobs and the increased investment that's happening, the other grants that these companies have secured, SBIR and STTR funds, to raise what they're doing and accelerate their time to market, where these technologies and innovations can really help people and improve quality of life. Next slide, please. Two case studies. First is cytocybernetics. So anytime a drug is going to get to market, it has to go through the FDA, and they test it for any cardiac implications to make sure that there's not going to be anything adverse that happens to your heart if you take the drug. And that's an expensive process, and pharmaceutical companies have been doing their best in that effort, but cytocybernetics developed something called the cytosite that actually actually replicates the electro impulses that happen to the heart when a drug is administered. And so what they've done is de-risk drugs and been able to better quantify and qualify the impact that those new drugs will have on the heart, therefore cutting cost out of the development of the drug. They've cut out time and money in verifying and validating the effects that new drugs coming to market will have on the new drug. So we've helped them with multiple CAC grants over the last couple of years, and actually they won 43 North a couple of years ago, and so that was $500,000 to help them achieve their goals. And they are selling in Singapore, and they are going gangbusters. So we're really excited about cytocybernetics, and UB's CATs help facilitate that accelerated growth with prototyping and scaling their business. Efferent Labs is developing a sensor that actually reads the biometrics of a patient that's being administered chemotherapy, and it gives the clinicians real-time data on everything from the temperature, the pulse, anything that's going on in the body. When you're administered chemotherapy, there's too much, there's too little, and then there's just a small window of just right. And Efferent Labs has developed this biosensor that's implanted and allows clinicians to figure out what the just right amount is, so they're not doing more harm and they're not being ineffective in that administering. The CAT project that we had with Efferent, their sensor was the size of $50, and now we've got it under the size of a dime. And we're working in conjunction with the University of Rochester on that project with the company. So it's been really exciting to see the momentum and the progress that they're making, and that's where things are going. In terms of applications, our UBCAT application happens in February. It'll happen in February of 2018. The applications are typically due the first part of April, and the funding is awarded for July 1st. Projects need to be completed between July 1st and June 30th. Thank you so much, and I'll look forward to entertaining questions at the end.
Thank you, Kim. Our next presenter, Dennis Cormier, is Director of the Additive Manufacturing and Multifunctional Printing Center for Advanced Technology, headquartered at Rochester Institute of Technology. He has worked in additive manufacturing and 3D printing for over 20 years. Dennis?
So my name is Dennis Cormier, and I'm director of the Imprint Center, and we're located at RIT, and our other partners are Clarkson University and New Paltz, SUNY New Paltz. So the description of our center is this particular center is focused exclusively on 3D printing and additive manufacturing. So I've personally been involved with 3D printing dating back to the mid-90s, and we have several staff members as well with quite a bit of experience. We've got a very, very nice brand new facility here. The Imprint Center has only been in existence for less than 2 years. We're in brand new construction here with very nice equipment. The three legs of the stool that we tend to focus on under the applied collaboration bullets there, we have a number of projects where we're working with companies to develop brand new additive manufacturing or 3D printing processes. And unfortunately, most of those are covered under non-disclosure agreements, so I can't show a whole lot, but the last slide, I'll give one example of that. We have quite a bit of involvement with the chemistry and chemical engineering folks developing new materials that are used in 3D printing processes. And lastly, we have a number of projects where we work with companies or funding agencies to develop a completely new product or device. that takes advantage of the unique things you can do with additive manufacturing. So an example of that, I show some of the federal funding agencies on the right-hand side of that slide. And one example with NIH is the design, printing, and testing of implantable micropumps to deliver drugs to the inner ear for treating hearing disorders. So this is 3D printing on a very, very small scale with multiple materials. So go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, so the key types of things we do, services, we get a lot of companies calling us up or emailing asking what process, what 3D printing or AM process is best suited for a particular material of interest to the company. And so we give a lot of just that type of simple assistance, use such and such a process with such and such a material, and basic information on the capabilities and limitations of each type of process. There's also some aspect of design assistance with new products. So you'll see an example, I think, on the next slide of light weighting, reducing the weight of a product. As I mentioned previously, we are working with a couple companies on brand new additive manufacturing processes and materials. So under key capabilities, we have most of the basic types of 3D printing and additive. There's stereolithography, fused deposition modeling, selective laser sintering, and so on. But we do have some metal 3D printing or additive manufacturing processes. We're starting to do quite a bit more with composite, carbon fiber and other fiber reinforced additive manufacturing. And this may not seem intuitive, but we're doing quite a bit with flexible hybrid and printed electronics, which is an example of additive manufacturing. You're printing material in the spot where you need it, but it's different functions. It's not a mechanical part, it's electrical circuits or optical devices or things of that nature. On the right-hand side there, you see a sampling of companies that we're currently working with, and everything from two-person startups to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between. Next slide, please. So here's some examples. Let me actually start with the lower left there. So in the case of light weighting, these engineered cellular lattice materials are of great interest for aerospace companies, for instance, for reducing the weight of a product. The white blocks that you see there next to it that's actually an elastomer material. So we've done quite a bit with energy absorbing structures for packaging, football helmets, and things of that nature. The carbon fiber composite that you see in the middle there, that was an example where we were a beta test site for Stratasys prior to their commercial release of that new carbon fiber material. We've got full color printing. That's that anatomical model that you see there. That's what it looks like coming out of that printer. There's no coloring, there's no assembly or anything like that. That's a multi-material printer. If you click the Vader Systems video, Vader is a startup company in Buffalo that has developed a completely new metal additive manufacturing process. It works with wire instead of powder. You're seeing it printing a part right there, and it looks like a steady stream of aluminum coming out of that nozzle, but the inset there, you can see it's actually jetting discrete droplets, so it's like inkjet printing with molten aluminum. So I'm very, very excited about that. We have their first machine installed in the lab right now and are helping them develop that process with new materials. And then in the lower right corner, if you could start that video, this is an example of a laser cladding head that's integrated directly in with the CNC milling machine. So in this case, it's Hardinge, which is another New York State company. We have integrated this laser cladding head directly into the tool changer of a Hardinge 5-axis CNC milling machine. So you can add or deposit metal, multiple materials, in fact, put away the laser cladding head and load up an end mill and do finished machining on the same part without ever removing the part from the jaws. So that's another really nice process. And now you can go to the last slide. So here's a case study. This is an example. It's another startup company, Sensor Films, in Victor, New York, which is just east of Rochester. They are working with Xerox, and we're working with them as well. This is another example. The machine that you see right there in the Imprint Center, that was the very first machine that they installed. And this is a very large-scale inkjet multi-material deposition system. So we're helping Sensor Films develop new materials and test new materials for that platform. We partnered with them on a NextFlex, which is one of the federal manufacturing institutes, and Sensor Films successfully won a roughly $1 million, maybe a little over $1 million award in the last funding cycle, which is a pretty good accomplishment for a 3 or 4 person startup in Victor there. So we currently have other NextFlex projects with GE Global Research, and the third round of funding that's coming up. We have three more proposals, and these are New York State companies that we're partnering with in this example of one of the federal manufacturing institutes. So hopefully I didn't go over, but we'll turn it over to the next presenter.
Thanks, Dennis. Our next presenter, Daniel Walczyk, is a professor of mechanical engineering at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and since 2014 has served as director of the Center for Automation Technologies and Systems, or CATS, a New York-designed center of advanced technology focusing on automation and robotics applied to advanced manufacturing. Prior to joining Rensselaer, Dr. Walczyk spent 7 years in industry as a mechanical research engineer at GE and machine design for an automation company. His research interests include advanced composites manufacturing, additive manufacturing with composites, material handling technologies, machine design for automation, and manufacturing process improvement. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Dan Walczyk. I'm here at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute directing the Center for Automation Technologies and Systems. Next slide, please. So the Center for Automation Technologies and Systems, or CATS, has been around since 1989. We're one of the original CAT centers. We assist client companies in New York State with applied R&D in advanced manufacturing, robotics, and automation. We started out in automation exclusively and then branched out into advanced manufacturing over the last few years. We help the companies meet specific business objectives very important to them, such as increasing productivity, profitability, being more competitive domestically and internationally, increasing the number and quality of products they offer, and letting them grow so they can hire more people. Key partners leveraged, you see a whole bunch of companies that we've worked with. Other partnerships we have are with NSF, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, NIST, CFIS, which is our energy systems sister CAT at RPI, and our local MEP. Next slide, please. So some of our key services, we help a host of different size companies, from startups all the way to large companies. You can see a few examples. Ecovative is a local company that does biomaterials based on fungal mycelium. We were working with a startup, Vistex Composites, that spun off from the center. We work with large companies such as Regeneron and GE Global Research. We do technical consultation. Sometimes it's staff members, sometimes it's faculty members. We do collaborative research, so we will help the company write grants to the Manufacturing USA Institutes or federal funding agencies or state agencies to do joint research. We do a lot of proof of concept modeling and prototyping. Most of that is to de-risk development of new manufacturing processes or automation. We also do needs and resource matching. Sometimes what we offer is way beyond what the company needs. So maybe it's simply matching them with the right expert here on campus or elsewhere, oftentimes with another center. And we also serve as a surrogate R&D for many companies that don't have the bandwidth or the expertise to do it themselves. Our key capabilities, again, are de-risking of manufacturing automation and robotics, applied to many different applications, manual production optimization, new process modeling and development, prototyping. We have our own prototyping shop. We deal with vision systems, sensing, autonomous algorithms, smart manufacturing. In fact, we just spun off a hub for the new Smart Manufacturing Institute that's located in UCLA. We do roll-to-roll production, and we link companies to system integrators once we find a solution for them. Our primary industries are discrete and continuous product manufacturers, anything from commodity like a razor all the way up to machinery that's the company sells to other OEMs. We work with, we run the gamut in types of companies that we work with. There's a few examples. I've already talked about a few. Kirsch Helmets is a new startup that has a new helmet design where they have a fluid-filled sack that is used to absorb the energy upon impact. It's also, they're looking to use it for the NFL helmets. We've also worked with companies like Welch Allyn and Regeneron. Next slide, please. This just gives you a sense of our infrastructure. We have about almost 13,000 square foot of lab and office space, many different types of labs that are focused on different areas of technology of importance to New York industry. You can see a few. We've been working in additive, and it's great to see that Imprint Center has been funded because it shows the importance of that technology to New York State. We also work with, again, robotics, automation, composites, and other areas. You can see that the two buildings we have, we're located in. One is the CII, the Center for Industrial Innovation on the RPI campus. We have most of one floor, and then we have a high bay space which we share with the teaching factory. Next slide, please. The one case study I want to focus on is a company called Mueller Phipps International in Poughkeepsie, New York. They're a small established company that was started in the early 80s. They have in-house engineering, but they had no R&D or robotics expertise. And they were finding that the industry was, the investment casting industry was desperate for automation. By the way, investment casting involves taking wax patterns, coating those with a ceramic slurry, melting out the slurry and pouring in cast metal, shaking off the ceramic shell that's formed, and that gives you near-net shaped metal parts that are used in many different industries. This is a very manually intensive industry, so we help them with, again, automation. We helped them win many, many contracts for R&D, and we acted as a subcontractor. Some of the activities we did were process development, risk assessment, and risk mitigation. We did proof of principle models. We did machine design concepts. We were a member of their system design team. We provided robotics expertise and process automation. Next slide, please. This just shows the end results. In the upper left, you can see a wax pattern being wax welded onto another part. Because of some novel concepts we came up with, we actually co-wrote, I think, almost 3 patents that were issued to the company, and we helped them to design a new wax welding system that would weld patterns to a runner system automatically, and it dramatically changed the industry. And you can see the resulting machine that they're selling many of each year. It's called the production APAS machine. And anyway, that's an example of what the kind of work we do, and that's the end of my talk. So thank you very much.
Our final presenter is Lawrence Weber. Lawrence is the Business Development Manager and Entrepreneur in Residence for the Center for Advanced Technology and Diagnostic Tools and Sensor Systems. He applies his scientific background as a PhD physical chemist and former protein crystallographer by coupling it with his international technology business experience to identify productive campus matches for companies and effective company business strategies.
Hello,
Go ahead,
everyone.
Larry.
Hello, everyone. May we have the next slide? The CenterCat exists as a promoter of company-campus collaboration with the objective of helping companies achieve their positive economic impact. We have the pleasure of working closely with the Center of Excellence in Wireless and IT, CWIT for short, with whom I have a joint appointment, and also the overall relatively high-traffic Stony Brook University with its 2 centers of excellence and 3 CATs. We also branch out our partnerships to off-campus organizations such as the Long Island Angel Network, Long Island Capital Alliance, which we interact with as part of our entrepreneur in residence function. Because of the excellent collaborative environment created by NYSTAR, a company can work with any or all of our centers simultaneously. And this is good because the CenterCat's subject scope is all of the STEM faculty members and their work and equipment. Next slide. I've identified here 4 main pathways of our collaboration with companies. First of all, the CenterCat acts as if a bank account to co-fund the cost of faculty collaborations by companies. We also identify access as a portal to the campus to unique research infrastructure and equipment. We also provide access to the CenterCat's embedded rapid prototyping research facilities for electronic devices via such a collaboration, in other words, co-funded. And we also maintain our Entrepreneur in Residence program, which is itself a business collaboration, and by which we reach out to companies in strategic contract matters, partner recruitment. Our key capabilities include all of the research facilities on campus and our ability to tie in real-world business experience in addressing business strategy and partnership recruitment. Industry served, you can read the list: CenterCat, sensors, sensor-dependent products, which are a lot, electronics, aerospace, biomedical devices, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide. Now, one of the things that we're proud about working under the ESD NYSTAR environment is how the program is metricized in terms of our performance. We're only metricized by economic impact, which are achieved by the company that we're working with, as substantiated by them to NYSTAR, which letters are not published. And examples of economic impact could be creating a job, launching a new product, gaining incremental revenue, not moving out of state, which would be protecting a job. And so, in essence, the CenterCat's goals and the company goals align. Next slide. By way of examples of the fruit of our approach, the Entrepreneur in Residence and Campus Engineering collaboration co-funded by the CenterCat have assisted in bringing the inventor of a physical therapy device to the current point, its current stage, which is negotiating a manufacturing and sales agreement for the product. And I personally, as the Entrepreneur in Residence, have reserved the first right to visit Yankee Stadium with the company. The Entrepreneur and Campus Engineering collaboration, co-funded by the CenterCat, has also assisted in bringing an inventor of an industrial mechanical device to taking their initial orders of units and ramping up manufacturing, which is a field they know well, and they're going to manufacture in New York. Next slide. So finally, I bring you a photo of some of my favorite things taken from the SUNY Chancellor's conference suite. First of all, you can see sort of mid-right past the lower wing of the SUNY Administration Building, the Research Foundation with its iconic dome. And if you continue up the street, which is State Street, you reach the lovely 19th century Capitol building where the legislature meets and so kindly extends our funding. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Larry. We're going to try to see if we can get Kim back for the first presentation from the UB CAT. Kim, are you there?
I am there. Oh. Should we try again? Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. Are you hearing the echo that I'm hearing?
Yes, we're hearing it.
All right. Please advance the slide and forgive the echo.
We're going to go to questions first. I think we're having some technical issues with the UB technology. I apologize for that. So I wanted to take some time to see if anyone had any questions. We have about 6 questions that came in, and I can direct them to the specific CAT centers. In the meantime, while we're typing these ones in, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to ask. The first one is for Larry, and this is, how much equity do you take in exchange for your support?
Well, that's a very easy question to answer. The answer is 0. Our ore in the water is to help the companies create their economic impact. We don't take any interest in the companies beyond that. I mean, that's a huge interest by itself, but we don't take any economic interest by the company. In fact, as entrepreneur residents, I'm occasionally invited to join the advisory board of startup companies. And when and if I decide to do so, it's always in the name of the Sensor Cat, and I don't take any money for it.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Dan at the RPI CATs. Can you speak to being able to work with more than one center at a time?
I missed a part of the question. Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. One of the questions that came in was an inquiry about being able to work with more than one center at a time.
Of course. I mean, actually, New York State encourages any of the centers to work with other CATs around the state. We obviously, due to proximity, have worked on several projects with our sister CAT, Center for Future Energy Systems, but we've actually talked with other CATs to do projects, and we look forward to doing that because there's actually a joint benefit. We both get credit for the economic impact. So you know, it's not an issue. We talk with many of the centers on a routine basis and to see if there is some way to work. If there's a project where it makes sense to have technologies from multiple CATs, we encourage that. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Thanks, Dan. The next question is for Dennis, and this was, do you ever partner with companies on SBIR proposals?
Yes, quite a few of them. I think this past spring's cycle, we had 5 SBIR proposals that were submitted, all led by private or small businesses, I should say. One of the 5 was funded, the other 4 were not. That's not an unusual hit rate, but it's relatively straightforward. And I serve on SBIR review panels quite often, which is interesting. I encourage anybody who ever has that opportunity to do so. It's interesting seeing the process from the other side.
Thanks, Dennis. And another question for Larry. How quickly can you turn around the project being discussed?
Well, clearly that's in many respects project dependent, depending on the scope and the. So you know, we sometimes break projects into stages, but you know, as a university, most of the much of the hands-on work takes place by students under faculty supervision, and so the schedule of a project is strongly influenced by the semester periodicity of life here on campus. But obviously, I would say that the nature of the project is the most has the most weight in that.
Okay, great. And one final question came in from multiple accounts here, is directed towards Dennis and also to Larry and Dan, if you have anything that you want to add, is the issue of intellectual property. So I don't know if each of you want to speak to this, but it came up multiple times.
Well, there's a core principle in New York state law, this is Larry, which prohibits the use of public funds for private gain. So when it comes to using state-funded university facilities, the law is that any new intellectual property which is developed during a project with a company is owned by the state, generally through the SUNY Research Foundation. Nevertheless, in the contract which develops, which in our cases always has a scope of work with milestones and deliverables and a budget with line items, there's a workaround for that in terms of the interest of the company, which declares that the company and the university will negotiate an exclusive license. Now, point number one is that a company can avoid this entirely if they come to the university with their own patents and are implementing their patents. I became familiar with this working with the federal government years ago, that the project was to test my product. Secondarily, some companies like to have the role of a licensee of SUNY property, in that, first of all, the royalty percentages of revenue are modest, and second of all, the liability of the patent owner is much reduced, because it's SUNY is the big fat litigation target. God forbid there is a litigation. And finally, because a small company can burnish its reputation by saying it developed this with the university, Stony Brook University, SUNY Albany, etc. So that's my answer. Thank you.
This is Dennis with the Imprint Center. So the RIT has a mechanism. This is optional. It's if the company wants it. They can, for $5,000 or 10% of the contract cost, they can have exclusive rights to any IP resulting from the project upfront, so that you eliminate all the post-project negotiations and discussions, and so that's a very modest sum of money. And I know New York State, with the CATs and Centers of Excellence, is discussing mandating that sort of approach for all CATs. I don't know where that stands, but the idea of giving companies the option of paying a small amount of money up front to guarantee that they have exclusive rights to any IP resulting from a project.
Hi, this is Dan Walczyk, CATS at RPI. We have very similar policies here. Historically, many of the private universities have been very aggressive with intellectual property. Seeing how that has affected businesses, many have kind of pulled back, and I would assume that RIT was kind of in the same boat. RPI, we basically give the companies an option for a nominal fee, just like RIT. I think it's something like 10% of the project cost, or 5 or 10K. I'd have to look at it. Exclusive rights to the technology that's generated, and there's a clause in there: if there's a home run, something over some threshold, then we ask for royalties. Very, very modest though, and it's prorated for the amount of input into the IP that RPI CAT is responsible for. The basic policy otherwise is, if they own it, if they bring it to the table, they own it. If we bring it to the table, we own it. And if it's something in between, we negotiate.
Thanks, Dan. We did receive one additional question come in here, and with all of the information that's being provided about all of the CATs, there was a question about being a central point of contact where we can navigate between these organizations. And I think that one of the things that we do here at Fuse Hub is be able to provide those resources to you. So we'll touch base on that at the end of the slide, but that's an excellent question. So I'm going to wrap up the Q&A and speak a little bit about some upcoming Fuse Hub programs. We have the Manufacturing Innovation Fund, which is going to open on September 1st and will close promptly on September 29th at 4 p.m. You can view the eligibility guidelines and FAQs on our website. They will be available sometime this week. Not-for-profit organizations in New York State are eligible to apply, and there must be an industry partner identified. The innovation grant awards range from $25,000 to $75,000. And we also have a Long Island Solutions Forum for New York State manufacturers, and that's going to be held down on Long Island at Stony Brook University. This forum is a half-day matchmaker-style event where manufacturers can meet with business and technology experts in one-on-one consultations. And you can join Fuse Hub directly after the Solutions Forum for a lunch and learn funding resources for manufacturers, which will take place from 12:30 to 1:30. And registration is available on the Fuse Hub website. I want to give a special thank you to all of our presenters today. I apologize for the technical difficulties there, and we will make a clean version of this webinar available on our website. Remember, the webinar will be available as well. To our manufacturers, you can keep the conversation going by contacting any of the CAT centers that you heard about directly, or you can reach out to Fuse Hub at the locations shown here, and we can connect you to the appropriate resources. Thank you once again, and have a great day.